Hey, Neil from VeloExpert here in the glorious Peak District. I mean, check out that view. I mean, sadly, it's not been like that all winter, but let's just pretend it has for the sake of Instagram and YouTube. And I'm here today to talk you through the Megamo West, which is the adventure gravel bike from the Girona-based brand. So Megamo are a Spanish brand based in Girona near Barcelona, which is like a gravel hotspot, as anyone who spends any time on Instagram will know. And this is one of two carbon bikes they do. So they do the Silk, which is a more race bike, so tighter clearances, slightly steeper angles. This one has a longer reach, a longer wheelbase, slightly slacker head angle, and is designed for kind of rougher terrain and also a bit of bike packing and a bit of adventuring. Also has a space for wider tyres, which basically means I think it's better for UK riding. All of those things added up mean it's better on slightly gnarlier, slightly rougher trails that we have here in the UK. So I've been riding it for a while now. The guys at J. James did a fantastic job getting it set up for me, so I had no issues there. Straight from Rotherham, rode it home, absolutely perfect. Done some good rides on it, spent a lot of time on it, so let's get into it and let's go through some of the details and some of the things I like about it, some of the things I don't, and why I think, or what I think, will all be clear. So, first things first, let's get into the frame. So, the West has slightly longer reach and a slacker head angle than the Silk has. So, it has a stack of 576 and a reach of 400 and a head angle of 70 degrees, which isn't that far off a mountain bike. So, a 29er mountain bike from 10 years ago would have had a 70 or 69 degree head angle. So, it's definitely on the kind of more relaxed, more kind of mountain bike end of geometry, which I think is a good thing. It's got wheelbase of 1059, so again, reasonably long, which means should be stable, and pretty good when the terrain gets pretty rough. I'm a big fan of kind of more relaxed mountain bike style gravel bikes. I've ridden a few of the kind of racier bikes, and for the riding I do, and for the local terrain, and to be honest, gravel in general in the UK, I think this style of bike is a much, much, much better option. But we'll see when we get into the riding as to how it works exactly. Has frame storage, which is pretty good. It's a little bit narrow. The down tube's not huge, so you can't actually fit too much in it, but you can fit the essentials. So I have in there my trusty day saver tool, my dyno plug, which is kind of a non-negotiable with me. So Pedro's tie levers and a TPU inner tube just fits in there. So that'll keep you covered for pretty much anything. You'll need to carry a pump somewhere else. You can't quite fit that in there, but you know, it's handy to have. Some really nice detailing on this bike. So the tube profiles are very nice. I really like this kind of squared finish on here. I think it's a really good looking bike. It's got slightly aero profiles, but there's no aero claims. So again, don't read too much into that. Drops heat stays, which should add quite a bit of comfort, which is fairly standard. Nice beefy bottom bracket. All the cables are hidden internally, which is fairly standard on top end bikes. But unlike quite a few of the race bikes, this has got all the bits you need for a bit of bike packing. So you have the mounts on the fork and the mounts on the top tube, and you've even got mounts down here for another bottle cage, should you wish. I never put one down there because it would just be covered in rubbish. But you know, each their own. You can fit a front mech. You can run cable gears on here if you really wanted to. I'll be honest, I tend to find anything that's got internal routing like this with a standard cable setup is a pain. So wireless or Di2 is a much better option, but you can do it. You can fit 2x. Again, don't know why you'd bother. The new SRAM stuff is absolutely fantastic, especially the new gravel group set. The Force Explorer is unbelievably good. We'll get onto that in a sec. So yeah, that's the frame details. Really nice. 12mm bolt through front and back, like everything else. Nothing out of the ordinary. It has got clearance for a 50mm tyre as well, so future-proof, I think. Standard 27.2 seat post, in line as well, so nicely over the bottom bracket. Plenty of clearance. And yeah, great looking bike, I think. So as I said, here's the SRAM Force Access T-Type group set that comes on the Megamo West. And it is absolutely fantastic. So it's a 1x system, so single chainring at the front with a 40-tooth chainring, which is paired to a 1046 at the rear, which is an enormous range. And what makes this really good is it's 13 speed, and it's essentially 2 cassettes in one. So at the bottom here, you have close ratios like you'd have on a road cassette, which is good if you're going fast or riding in a bunch or on kind of flatter terrain, where like smaller gaps between the gears are much better. But it's combined with a wide ratio top part of the cassette, so it goes up to a 46 tooth here. Now there's some big gaps in here, but these are generally only used when you're going up big climbs, and it gives you the best of both worlds. It gives you the sort of closer gears that you get on a 2x system, but with the range and the simplicity and the quietness and all of the good things you get with a 1x system. Also uses the UDH mounting, which is this here, so it doesn't have a normal mech hanger like it would before. This bolts directly onto here, and as you can see, it's really solid. That comes from the mountain bike group set. It's referred to as T-type. It means it's super stiff, super robust. I've not tested it, I've not banged it off any rocks, but it should be a lot stronger than the standard setup, and it also gives a much crisper shift. I think a lot of people forget that a flexible rear mech actually makes gear shifts a bit softer, especially when you get really close ratios like on a 13 speed. The slightest bit of flex can make quite a difference to how it shifts. So having a really stiff interface makes a big difference. It's also got this really nice kind of iridescent purple chain, which you can't really make the most of today because I've got a fairly heavy chain lube on because it is winter and it is covered in grub and grit, but when it's clean, that looks brilliant. Really nice detail as well. Really finishes off this bike lovely. So yeah, as you might have guessed, I'm a fan of this SRAM group set. Whether or not it's worth going up to Force or Red over the rival, that's up to you. You get a better finish and more kind of mountain points for the levers on Force and Red. It's a bit lighter, a bit crisper, but the general workings and the ratios and everything else are the same on rival, so makes that an even better bargain. The other thing as well, I think sometimes gets forgotten with the new SRAM system, the new lever shape's much nicer. It's a bit longer, get a bit more room, it's more comfortable off road, but they've really worked on the lever drag. So when you pull the lever, there's very little resistance from the seals in the lever body and the caliper, which gives a really smooth feeling. It's almost like there's no resistance. At first it feels a bit strange, but once you get used to it, it's really good. And it gives you a lot more control. So you can feel when the bike's likely to lock up or when the wheels are likely to lock. It just gives you a lot more control and a lot more modulation, which is a small detail, but one I think people forget, and it really is something special with this group set. So yeah, big fan of it. So the bike I've got comes with this one-piece bar and stem. You get this on the 1, the 2 and the 3, and then if you go for the 5, 10 on the 15s, which is the lower spec bikes, they come with a standard aluminium bar, which is a rounded section here and not an aerodynamic one like this. Now as a bar itself, it's really comfortable, it's nice. I like the flat section, that feels really good on the tops. I like the way it's taped up to here. It's 41 centimetres on this bar from here, from the lever hood to lever hood. It has a 16-degree flare, which means it's at 50 centimetres when you get to the bottom. So reasonably wide, not kind of super narrow race like some people expect or some people want. For me personally, I much prefer this. This gives you a bit more control. It's more comfortable on longer rides. Gives you a bit more space for fitting bar bags and things as well. And speaking of bar bags, we get to my kind of bugbear with this bar. So as a handlebar, it's great. And if your riding is generally smooth and kind of more road stuff, then absolutely fine. But if you're looking to do more bike packing, then I think you might be better off with the aluminium bar below. So although this looks really cool, and there is a mount available that mounts under here, so you can have your Wahoo here instead of on here like I have, but it didn't come with mine because mine's a press sample bike, but aftermarket ones do. You're really limited to how you can fit lights or bar bags. Bags you can generally strap on, they do just about fit, but then you've got nowhere to mount your lights. So, if you're looking at doing bike packing or multi-day stuff, maybe look at a different bar and stem setup to make the most of it. Like for me, it did cause a few problems. There were a couple of times I'd want to do a night ride where I couldn't really fit a bright enough light. I could just about get away with like a rubber strapped one, like the Nogs that I've been testing. But if I wanted to fit my my outbound lights, I had nowhere to mount them, which was a bit of a shame. So yeah, as a handlebar, it's very good, but it really does depend on your on how you use it and what you're looking to do with it. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Top of the range bike, so you get top of the range wheels. These are the Zip 303 Explorer S, which are a fantastic wheel, but again, a bit like the handlebar, It really depends on what sort of riding you do as to whether or not they're a good thing. So if you're looking at going fast and you want a more of a racier feel, they're good. They are aero, they are fast. You know, they're very wide, they make a great noise, and they look super cool, which most people won't want to admit, but does make a big difference. But for me, for kind of bike packing and adventure stuff, I'd want something a bit shallower, potentially a bit narrower as well, which is unusual. Normally wider's better, but I find with these, with a 45mm tyre on, the actual internal width makes the tyre quite stretched, so the depth is less than you'd expect. So this is the Pirelli Cinturato Gravel RC, which is kind of like intermediate tyre. And I've ridden these in a 45 before on an Argon 18, and they felt very good. They were really comfortable, really grippy. On this, they don't have the same kind of cushioning feel that they had in the other, and it's down to the internal width. So on most bikes, you get, on most gravel wheels, sorry, they're like a 25mm internal, which gives you a bit more depth. So for this bike, I'd be tempted to run a 50 on the front. I'll be less bothered on the rear. It doesn't really make as much of a difference, but for me, I would go with a wider tyre, not so much for the grip and the width, but more for the depth. So you get a bit more volume and a bit more cushioning. Again, it's the usual caveat with gravel stuff. You know, it really does depend on where you ride and what you do. But for me, I'd want a bit more volume on the front. So yeah, other than that, they've been a brilliant wheel. I've lost no spoke tension, zero issues, very fast, super easy to set up tubeless. You know, all of the things you want and kind of expect from a zip wheel, they tick all the boxes. But yeah, just kind of, again, just have a think about what you actually want from a bike and, you know, what sort of riding you do. Now, first of all, look at the colour of this thing. I'm not the world's biggest fan of matte black bikes. After selling them for a long time and, you know, always seeing them in shops, I find them a bit boring. So it's really nice to see something bright. So this is the purple version. It does have a different name, but it escapes me just now. It's also available in a kind of sandy ecru colour and something they refer to as camo green, but it's not really camo, it's just like a matte green like this. But I'm a big fan of this. I think the contrasting orange graphics work really well. Even my airy pink cages from Elite work well on this, I think. But I really, really like it. It's a great bike to look at. It's got some really cool details. So, how does it compare value-wise? Well, this one is 6,199, which isn't cheap, but it is well spec for a bike with SRAM Force 13-speed, Zip 303 Explorer wheels. You know, it's a top-of-the-range spec, so you can expect a top-of-the-range price. When you compare it to the likes of Pinarello, Cervelo, and all those guys, this is actually really well priced. You know, 6.2 is a lot of money. I'm not going to pretend it's not, but you know, for what it is and for how it's spec'd, it's good. It's pretty good value. Would I go for this model in range? No, I'd probably actually go for the 05 model, which comes in at £3,400. So that, you still get the same frame, same fork. You get the aluminium handlebar, which is a bit heavier. It doesn't look quite as neat, but is more versatile. And I think if you're doing bike packing, would make a bit more sense. It's got some heavier wheels in there, so it's got some aluminium wheels, but again, depending on what you're using it for, they're more than serviceable. And if you wanted to race, you could put some carbon wheels in there and make the difference. It doesn't have the 13-speed force group set, which is brilliant, but it does have access gears, so it is wireless. It is, you know, 12-speed wide range cassette on there. Not as smooth, not as well polished as this one, but you know, nearly 3,000 quid less as well. So that would be the one I would go for. Yeah. So I've been riding this Megamo West now for 6 or 7 weeks. I was lucky enough to pick it up from the guys at J. James in Rotherham before Christmas. So shout out to the guys there. They did a fantastic job of getting this all set up and running perfectly for me. So cheers guys, saves me a lot of work. Coffee was pretty good as well. Always good to see them. So yeah, big shout out to J. James. It's also worth mentioning, I think it's something that sometimes gets forgotten in reviews, that Megamo sell via bike shops in the UK. So if you want to buy one, have a look on their website, you'll find their dealer list, and then you can find one close to you, and then you can actually sit on it and have a look and see what size you need and what you think about it, which I think is quite important, especially on a high-end purchase like this. Being able to touch and feel and have a look at a product makes a big difference. So yeah, go check them out. But yeah, first ride for me was a Trans-Pennine trail from Rotherham back to Sheffield. Bit of a shakedown ride. I did a little video of it, which was nice. and I've actually done some pretty good rides with it. So lots of different stuff. So stuff like this, which is kind of my bread and butter gravel riding. I mean, bread and butter makes it sound boring, but I mean, look at that. Whoa, what a stunner of a day. Sadly, it's not been like this that much in December and January, but you know, Instagram and YouTube isn't real life, so let's imagine it's always like this. But one ride I did actually ride across the Pennine. So I rode from my home in Sheffield to Manchester, essentially taking the west-west, which was again beautiful day, but Baltic. It was -10 at one point. Oh, wind chill on the tops. So you know, a bit nippy. So yeah, I've done lots of rides on this. So stuff in the woods, long distance stuff, shorter rides, and yeah, it's given me a good kind of feel for this bike. And I think they've nailed it with their description of it. It is an adventure bike. It's fast. It's not, you know, it's not a cumbersome kind of slow doors Galaxy S like a touring kind of bike. It is fast. It's light. It's stiff, but it is really good for long distance. That kind of longer wheelbase and slacker head angle, slightly longer reach, makes it feel really stable, which at first could kind of make you feel like it's a tad slow, but it's not. What it actually is it's reassuringly stable. And when you're tired, when you've done a really long ride, that actually is a real benefit. So on longer rides, especially towards the end, if you're doing anything vaguely technical, it just makes it a bit easier. It smooths the trail out. It's one less thing to think about, and there's no weird handling traits. So like I said before, I've ridden quite a few of the kind of racier gravel bikes that are available, and I'm not entirely sure they're the right bike for a lot of people, whereas this, I think, ticks a lot of boxes. You know, it's a good all-rounder, it's fast. I'd be more than happy to race on this, but then I'd also be happy to strap some bags on it and take it out for a couple of days. It's a very comfortable bike. It's just a good place to be, and it sometimes an all-rounder can just be a bit boring and kind of jack of all trades, master of none, but this does still feel fast. So it is nippy, but it's really capable off-road. You know, if your gravel riding is more on-road and more kind of trans-Pennine trail stuff, like so bike paths and smooth kind of terrain, then you might be better served with the Silk, which is closer to a road bike. But for the gravel riding I do, and I think a lot of people do, which is this kind of stuff, I think, you know, boring mountain biking essentially, then this is a great bit of kit. But the benefit with this over a boring mountain bike is it's also fast on the road. So yeah, I'm really impressed with it. I'm still 50-50 on the handlebars for most of the riding. They're comfy, they're in good shape, but I do struggle with mounting things to them, which is again not so important if you don't want to do any bike packing. If you do, maybe check out the lower spec versions and go for one with an Handlebar, just because it means you've got more places to mount stuff. The one thing I do think impacts the ride quality of this bike though is the super wide rims. Like I was saying before, what they do is they widen the tyre, and then they also decrease how deep it is, which takes away quite a lot of the air volume essentially, well, you know, the depth of the tyre, which does do a good job of absorbing shock. So I would, if this was my bike, I would put the 50mm on the front, be less worried about the rear. You know, the 45 in the back is fine, plenty of grip, also plenty of clearance when it is a bit minging. But I would definitely try the 50mm on the front. I don't think it'd make much of a difference on rolling resistance, but I do think it'd make quite a lot, well, it'd just make a lot more sense, I think, in terms of comfort and grip on the front end. So yeah, a great all-round bike. Is there anything I'd change on it? Bars, front tyre, I think that'd be it. Group set and the brakes are absolutely faultless. Like I said earlier, I am a huge fan of this new SRAM stuff. In the past, SRAM's been not always hit the mark. You know, I worked for a SRAM tech and a SRAM distributor for quite some time, so I've got more experience with it than most. And I was a fan of the early stuff, but reliability was never quite there. This stuff though, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So yeah, Do you need the force? Probably not. I think you're probably getting the same benefit from rival. But whichever way you go, the 1x system with a T-type rear mech and the 13 gears is brilliant. It really is. At no point have I felt that I've been overgeared or undergeared, or even when I've been riding with some groups and a bunch, never felt like I've been in the wrong gear. That kind of combination of a road cassette and a mountain bike cassette combined really is perfect for gravel. Hats off to you, SRAM, good effort. So there we go. On descents, it's really stable. Not boring, it doesn't stick to a straight line, but if you want to push on, there's quite a lot of feedback from the front wheel without being twitchy. Again, I'm not so sold on road geometry and twitchy gravel bikes. I think if you're Tom Pidcock, that's fine, but for the rest of us, something that's a bit more composed makes a lot more sense. Especially if you're bikepacking, you know, when you're tired, that's when you make mistakes and when you crash. So having something that's more stable, I think, makes more sense. You know, like this corner here, it's quite loose, but absolutely fine. Handles really well. It's also pretty good at kind of woodland, twisty, narrow single track. You know, it holds its speed well. It's not a mountain bike, it will never be as good on proper single track as a 39 mountain bike, but for a gravel bike it's good. So if your gravel riding doesn't really fit into any particular niche, which I don't think many people do, I'm sure there's some pure racers out there, but I think they're few and far between. If you're like me and your gravel riding is a bit of everything, the occasional race, the occasional adventure, generally just getting out and doing some trail riding, this is definitely one to look at. So if you're the kind of gravel rider that does a bit of everything, then this is probably the right bike for you, I'd say. So I'd be happy to race on this. I'd be happy to do bikepacking and all sorts of things on it. And at no point did I think the bike was holding me back or slowing me down in any way. It's fast, it's light, without being kind of twitchy and loose feeling off-road, which sometimes super light bikes can. It's good when you load it up. It doesn't have any weird handling characteristics, but it's responsive enough and quick enough that if I was to pin a number on, it certainly wouldn't be this bike slowing me down. So yeah, as an all-rounder, great bike, really great bike. And also helps, I think it looks fantastic. This purple finish with the orange decals, it's one of my favourite bikes all year. In terms of how it handles the speed, here we are on one of the descents on Derwent, so nothing too technical, but reasonably quick in places, and it's very stable, really comfortable. You know, I can change direction quite quickly, no weird handling traits. These tyres are pretty grippy as well, so don't worry about sliding out. Got to keep an eye out for bugs like this one. Thank you. Always got to look out for Spaniels, they're crazy. But anyway, yeah, handles well. We're going into a reasonably tight corner now. Slow down as the sign says. Zip it in, plenty of grip. Lots of feedback from the front wheel, but without feeling loose or out of control. I've ridden racier bikes that might feel a bit quicker on a corner, but for the ride this is designed for, something a bit more relaxed makes a lot more sense. And I actually think that transfers over to most riders. You know, for most of us, a bike that handles smoother and more composed makes a lot more sense than an out-and-out race bike. So for that, I think this is a good bit of kit. So, VeloExpert, final verdict then on the Megamo West 01. What do I think? Well, I think it's a good bike. It's stiff enough, it's light enough, it's comfortable, it's fast. You know, it's great for an all-day ride. I've done some big rides on this bike and I've really enjoyed it. It's a fantastic bit of kit. I think there's a couple of things I would change. I would definitely change the front tyre at least. The handlebars, again, I think it does depend on what sort of riding you do. You know, for most of the riding I've done, they've been absolutely fine. But I would prefer something more versatile, I think. But I could live with it. I could live with it as it is. It's well priced. It's well spec'd. The group set is utterly fantastic. The wheels good. Definitely would benefit from a bigger tyre on the front, I think. But by that, I think it's a fantastic bike. You know, at 6,200 quid, it isn't cheap, but it is well priced for what it is. Really good bike. And the 0.5 version, which does make some compromises with wheels and group sets, I think is an even better buy at 3.4. So yeah, VeloExpert final verdict, Megamo West 01. It's a great bike, and one I'm going to be pretty sad to give back, I think. So let me know what you think. If you've got any questions or anything you'd like to know, pop a comment below. And if you like this sort of stuff that I've been doing lately, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we should have some more reviews coming up soon. Cheers, guys.